live. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
No
Delighted
problem.
to be here, Kieran.
No problem at all. So Alan, the idea of this, we're chatting off air, the idea of this show is to give contractors at a lower level an idea of what's going on at sort of tier 1, tier 2 level. So we want to create content and distribute it out to the guys that can't reach the trade shows, can't get to every event that's going on. The guys that are working hard in the day to day, so we can distribute it and they can listen to it in their own time. So yourself, founder of CETA.
Just going back to these contractors, I bet all of them have got smartphones in their pockets.
Of course,
So they've got technology with them.
Yeah.
It's just about leveraging it.
Absolutely. Our guys are generally very, very time poor, that's what we find. So we're trying to give them content that they can listen to in their own way. The idea of getting yourself in today was to talk about BIM. Right? So you founded, I want to bring you back, that's where we will get there. Can I bring you back for a sec? You founded CETA, and I'm intrigued by that. When did you find that?
CETA is the Construction IT Alliance.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was founded in Bolton Street. Many people will have connotations with Bolton Street as a school of building.
Yeah, I went there myself.
It's now the College of Engineering in the Built Environment. That was a great time, 1999. If you go back to the mid-90s, late 90s, it was the dot-com boom.
Yeah.
You know, it was the millennium bug. You were probably too young to remember that now, Kieran. But it was an exciting time, and there was a lot of innovation going on in Bolton Street. And actually at that time a company spun out of Bolton Street called Build Online, and Build Online, just for your information, is one of the first online platforms for project management and construction.
Excellent.
And Build Online actually was, I know David Palmer, I hope you mentioned David Palmer, a colleague of mine on Bolton Street, was one of the founders of that company, and that company went on to gain a lot of funding from angel investors and became a very successful company. And it's gone through various iterations since then, but at that time I suppose there was a lot of innovation in the School of Architecture. That's where Build Online really developed, and we had a very dynamic director at the time, a guy called Professor John Ratcliffe, and John was a visiting professor in the University of Salford. And those of you know, the University of Salford is in Manchester, and they had a group that were focusing really on digital construction.
Right.
So they had a centre called the Construction IT Centre, and actually as a young academic, I suppose, I visited that centre a lot. I was studying my PhD at the time, and I met people like Ken Thomas, who's now head of engineering down in Waterford, and Ken and I had the idea, alongside another gentleman actually, Dr. Louis Gunnigan, who's now based in Grangegorman, helping with the build out of the new campus, the idea of forming a similar centre, a similar community in Ireland. So I suppose John Ratcliffe, in fairness to him, was he encouraged us. And on the 26th of September 1999 we had our first conference, and it was sponsored by Enterprise Ireland. Build Online spoke, and we had a number of speakers from the UK and around the world, and that was a great success. And that gave us, when we filled room 281 that day, of nearly 300 people, we thought, God, we're onto something here. This is really people of interest.
What was the idea? I'm going to jump in there. What was the idea first that you had? What were you trying to achieve?
Okay, well, the main interest was the frustration in respect to construction. Now, I'm a quantity surveyor, and I was dealing a lot in the UK as a young quantity surveyor working in the UK with claims, disruption, variations, and so on. And I actually went on to study a little bit of law, but I got disillusioned by the law because I thought this is very negative, you know, the adjudication, arbitration, lots of disputes. And I worked as a contractor's quantity surveyor, and I was constantly firefighting with clients over projects, and I thought there must be a better way. And really, the ultimate problem is information.
Yeah.
Poor information, late information, inaccurate information. All this is causing unnecessary disruption to the workflow. So, you know, if you get poor information from an architect or from an engineer, it's not buildable what they're outlining on their drawings, then obviously, you know, things like variations are going to happen. Mm-hmm. If you're waiting for information, it's also costs money. Yeah. And I suppose these guys who you relate to, if I mention the word day works, they know exactly what I mean. Yeah. This is when work is carried out on a time material basis. Nobody wants to work like that. No. People like to work on with a fully detailed information, priced in a competitive basis. So that was really the motivation. So we called ourselves an alliance. We focused on construction, IT, and that's really where we went along. And I suppose.
And was it a for-profit organisation?
What it was originally, Kieran, it was a research project.
Okay.
So, and again with the support of John Ratcliffe, if you go from 1999 to 2005, we were getting stronger as an alliance, and also we were starting to bid for funding with Enterprise Ireland. Enterprise Ireland have been amazing. I mean, any of the companies that you work with, Kieran, in the construction industry should really go to Enterprise Ireland if they're looking for support around IT. There's grants, there's innovation vouchers, there's all this stuff going on, right?
Our own business with low cost.
So, in around 1995, we got an opportunity to bid for a thing called the Enterprise Innovation Network. And Enterprise Ireland said, well, that's great, Alan, but you're not a legal entity. You need to become a legal entity. So what we did is we formed a company with the support of DIT at the time, and we became a company not for profit. Right. And that meant that we had a VAT number, CRO number. Yeah. It meant that we could put in a bid as a legal entity, separate to DIT, and that's what happened. So we formed the company in 2005. We spun out of DIT. Thankfully, DIT recompensed all the VAT money to us. That gave us a great boost. And don't forget, I am still and was then a full-time employee of DIT, right. Yeah. And TU Dublin are very proud to be so. Mm-hmm. But so this was sort of a hobby of ours, working on this project. And I suppose fast forward now to 2020 or 2019, 20 years later, we've made a lot of progress, but we're still talking about the same issues. Still the same issues, and I suppose that brings us on to this three-letter word.
Well, I was
that
just
is BIM.
I was just going to jump in there.
Yeah.
So we would have seen major shifts in IT between mid-90s right up to today. One of the majors being BIM, right? Yeah. A lot of our guys are the smaller subbies, right? As in, we generally deal with sort of 1 to 10 million. That's the sort of area we generally tend to play in. What is BIM? Can you explain for someone that
this three-letter word, can have a number of connotations. It could be better information management, it could be building information management, or it could be what was originally building information modeling. Yes. So if you think of any other industry we know, automotive industry, the car industry, aeronautical industry, manufacturing, those industries tend to build modeling. They tend to build models digitally first. Yeah. They test them. They, they stress test them in wind tunnels and all this type of stuff. And then once they're confident that the model works, then they build it. So this is the idea of BIM in construction. Yeah. That the future, whether we like it or not, will be that the contractors of the future will receive their tender information as a digital model, which they will then need to be able to consume, understand, and actually visually, it's better to visualize a building when it's in a third or fourth dimension. Yeah. And they'll be able to price these things, and they'll be able to understand, and the confidence they should have back in the future is that the architect and the engineers, whether they're mechanical or electrical or structural engineers, will have already worked out that everything fits. And therefore, the information will be more coordinated. And even the planning office or the local authorities will have seen the model, and they will have confidence that, that it's going to work. Yeah. So, if you go back to 1999, when do we hear about BIM? We're talking about BIM since 1974. If you go back that far, all right? So, it was around in 1999. It's still there. It's not going away. A guy called Chuck Eastman, who's now a retired professor from Georgia Tech, wrote a paper on building description systems back then. Now, what he was talking about back then was the idea of describing a building in a third dimension or a fourth dimension, he was looking at a building not as a flat 2D thing. He was looking at a building that had a form and a shape, and was made up of a series of components. The first time BIM was ever used was in 1992 by Autodesk in a white paper, which they called, I can read it, I've got it written down here, Modeling Multiple Views of Buildings. And in that paper, by a guy called Netherven and Tolman. They used the word building information modelling, open brackets, BIM, close brackets.
Okay.
So that's the first time it was actually used. You can search that online. And since then, it's matured into, let's just say today it's about digital twins. You know, the idea that, we'll come back to the practical side of it in a minute, but the idea that you could theoretically build something as a digital twin of the building, give that to a contractor after it's fully designed, who will price its construction,
Right.
and then it could be also given to the end user to manage the building during its life.
The sharing of all project info for architects, engineers, contractors, owners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, it's still the technology, while it's moved on over the 20 years, there's still an element of immaturity in that you can't fit. If you think of a glass of water and you think of it like a model of a building, you can't fill the thing full of information that someone can consume. It's too much information.
Yeah.
So the idea is that as you design, the model will develop and mature. But operators of buildings in the future only need to know certain information about its operational capacity, about its use of that it's the heating, the air conditioning, like typically in a hospital, it's the critical information you need to know. So whether you're a small subcontractor or a builder, my advice to you would be to start looking at this. If I use the term SolidWorks is a product that's used in the schools when they teach them construction, woodwork, construction studies, tech graphics, and DCG, I think they call it in Leaving Cert.
Yeah.
It's a product, it's cheap to buy, you can create simple designs. That is BIM. That is how simple BIM is. It could be something as simple as that, or it could be Revit, which is the big product that Autodesk have.
A couple of things struck me there. What you're saying, when you're saying, like, it will when we get there. There's a bit of like we're not quite there yet. Now I know the UK have a mandate, don't they, that BIM will be used across all public projects. How far are we away from that?
Yeah, well, I mean, in fairness to the UK, despite Brexit, in fairness to the UK, they have been a beacon of light in some respects, in that they've been quite innovative. The British government, the UK government, got this quick early on.
Yeah.
And that was really because of guys like Mark Bew, David Phelps, people that had a vision, and the government listened. So they introduced this mandate for BIM, but only on capital funded projects, exchequer funded projects, like, for example, the prison service, the defence, health, education, so on and so forth.
And has that been working on?
It's been working. You can only learn what you read.
Yeah.
But I believe it has been a success to an extent. There are ways that you can opt out of this as well. You don't have to, it's a kind of opt out scenario as well. The Irish government have had a lot of so if you look at Ireland, we've had a lot of challenges. It's not that long ago that we went through a really deep recession in this country, and the construction industry is still scarred by this. And I think if you even look today now in 2019, most of the activity, I would say, would be in the urban Dublin region.
Yeah.
And like I live in Naas now, there's quite a lot of building going on in Naas, but the further west you go, I think you see there's not an awful lot going on. I may be wrong, but I think what the Irish government has done, in fairness, through the Office of Government Procurement, they have issued a strategy 2017, and they are going to come up with a phased approach to BIM.
Okay.
And across the various departments. and they're basically working on that now. Also, Enterprise Ireland, who need to be applauded here, they worked on the National BIM Council. I was fortunate enough to sit on that, but there's a roadmap produced.
Yeah.
And so
there is a plan in action.
There is a
to get us
plan,
there, yeah.
And I would say the roadmap is actually something that's very easy to read. It's called the National BIM Council Roadmap for BIM. I suppose it is a BIM implementation program, but where BIM really succeeds in any construction business is where if you take, say, the middle tier large companies, you need a digital leader in the company,
Yes.
someone who gets it, someone who will drive the whole agenda.
Or a champion, we call them.
Call them a champion.
Yeah.
Now, you could be a small contractor who decides, you know what, I'm going to get into BIM and I'm going to make that the unique selling point for my business, even if I only turn over 2 million.
Yeah.
If I build extensions or I build homes, like, you know, the room for improvement.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all love that program.
Yeah, we
right,
love it.
Dermot Bannon, right?
Yeah.
When he gives, and he's a great architect, but when he gives the design information to the client, think about what he gives them. He gives them a physical building, doesn't he? He gives them something that made out of
Model,
cardboard or
yeah.
model, right? What about him giving them a digital experience of the model? Here's what it's going to look like, and using things like audio, augmented reality or virtual reality. He could even get the clients to immerse themselves in what they're going to see.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. A building contractor of the future, let's face it, most of those guys are great builders. Mm-hmm. We see the products they produce for Dermot and other clients around.
I'll give one of our customers a shout out on that. They're actually doing Dermot Bannon's house at the moment, Cascade Construction. So we're
brilliant.
We're tied into there at the moment. So
brilliant.
Little plug for the lads.
Yeah.
There,
So don't get me wrong. When I said earlier on I was disillusioned with construction, I was disillusioned with the bickering, the claims, the disruption, and the fact that, okay, I'm not going to get involved in the talk about the Children's Hospital, but these things really shouldn't happen, particularly if you've got good design, good coordination.
Opinion, what was the fall down? What was the
well, the first thing I say about that is I have no knowledge of the project. I've never been on the project. So it's very difficult for me to say. All I would say about a project like that is they are difficult, they're complex. This is a complex building. And those that say that BIM will mean, the correct use of technology or BIM will mean there'll be no variations, that's not correct. You have to have change on projects.
Of course.
Clients need to change their mind. Information may not be available at the time. So by co-locating 3 or 4 hospitals in one location in Dublin, or in Dublin like that, is always going to be, and it's unfortunate that the headlines are so negative about it. It's going to be a fantastic facility, but did they procure it the right way? I don't know. If they had earlier contractor involvement, it could have been better.
Was it rushed through, do you think?
I don't know. There's all these people talking about it's still on the wrong site and so on and so forth. It's very hard to comment on. Was I don't want to get a letter.
Of course.
It's very hard to comment on it. But what I would say is that, like you think of the buildings that have been constructed in even in Dublin City in the last few years. The Aviva Stadium, Croke Park, the Energy, Bord Gas Energy Theatre, the hospital. Like, they're all great projects I mentioned, but this is at a different scale, and. There isn't a mega project in the world that hasn't gone over budget, I would say, whether it's Wembley Stadium or these are huge projects. All you got to do if you live near that building, live in that site, look at the number of cranes on that site. If you think that you're going to create a digital twin of that and everything's going to work, and you've got weather, you've got delays, and you're also, hospital projects as well, the technology going into these hospitals, is complicated.
So in your opinion then, is BIM set up for tier 1, sort of mid-tier, or are the smaller contractors going to need to be involved for this to work?
Yes, but maybe not to the extent that the higher tiers need it. If someday a tender arrives in their door or online through an email, and it refers to a digital model, they need to know what that means. So keeping abreast of of it, it would be important. I know, for example, the CIF, who a number of these people might be members of, have a Construction 4.0 group that's focused on construction. The Alliance have regular meetings about it. So I would say, look, for any business to be successful, you've got to keep abreast of what's happening.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now, if you take all the other technologies that contractors need to be aware of, like I've heard things like WhatsApp is a great product on a construction site, because you can hit the subcontractors straight away with a message to say, you know, there's something on the floor here, somebody owns it, it needs to be tidied up in the next hour or everyone gets countercharged. You know? So there's lots of tech you can use on site, and I know we've talked before, Kieran, about your great product, Live Costs, and the idea, I think it's a great idea that, like, a small contractor, 1 man, 2 man, 10 man, whatever it might be, with a group of guys in the field, someone that knows where they are at any point in time financially is hugely important. Because otherwise you're not going to find out until it's too late whether you've lost money on a job. And you need to know for the next job where you made money, where you lost money, and so on and so forth.
We have a,
so I think Live Costs is something that,
your own background, naturally, from it being a QS, you're going to be, you know, fixed on cost. So we do have a lot of QSs that sort of use us and help us out when we come to developing products. So we're trying to marry practical on-site experience to quantity surveying and make it easy to use. If the smaller guys, I mean, you guys had the BIM gathering recently. Is that somewhere that they go as well? The as I say, that 3-letter word is hanging around. But that BIM gathering, I suppose, you go back to 2013, the gathering concept that the government introduced. You know, the idea of, you know, and we're just coming out of that recession, I suppose. The idea of bringing back diaspora to Ireland and having a gathering, I suppose. In fairness, Ralph Montague, who you know was the brainchild of the BIM gathering, the fact that we'd have every 2 years a gathering of a community who have an interest not just in BIM but other aspects of digital. So our first event was in the Guinness Storehouse in 2013. So it was a fantastic event. It was one of the first of its type that focused on this. So we were able to, you know, get the sponsors together. We were able to get some keynote speakers from around the world. And of course, don't forget, you know, while you had the mandate in the UK in 2016, it was really 2012 when we kind of listened and learned an awful lot from the UK. They had a 4-year plan for 2016. So it is very much kind of in our interest to get these guys over from the UK, because a lot of Irish companies during the boom here, or the downturn here, started working routinely in the UK. Flying over every Monday morning, you know, working and supplying materials into the UK. But so we had a 2015 event, I think, and then we had I think that was in the Gibson. 2017 and 2019 this year we had it in Galway. So you know, the decision about going to Galway for us was a risk. Take it out of Dublin, reduce it to 1 day. Will they come? And my God, did they come? 400 people turned up. Any excuse for a trip to Galway, is it?
Any excuse for a trip to Galway and to the King's Head and to the Keys. I'm from Galway myself, I'm from Portumna. So for me, and of course I'm an ex-Galway RTC student, so for me it was great to be there. And I was nervous about it because I was worried about it, but the guys on the seated team really knocked it out of the park, you know. And people, I suppose, were refreshed by the idea that they're coming to Galway, and people came down from Limerick, Sligo, Donegal, the Midlands, but also people came from Dublin and they took the time to stay on the night. And we then had a 20-year celebration of CETA at the dinner. And I'm
sure there was good business done there.
And Mark Costello, one of the directors of RPS, was very kindly helped host the dinner and the questions that I was asked that night. So what I'd say is to contractors who are up in Donegal or Cork, Waterford, wherever they are, to get involved to take a little bit of time out, to do a little bit of networking, meet architects, other contractors, other engineers, surveyors, learn about technologies. Take that time out, because that will help, and you might even find new employees at that.
Absolutely.
Young graduates. Yeah. That's beneficial to the business.
Do you guys do that through CETA as well?
Yeah, so what we do is in what we've done in the last few years, Kieran, I suppose we've tried to do things, not unlike yourself, that will keep the ship afloat. We don't get any, CETA don't get any overdrafts. We don't get any government funding other than we get some funding from SkillNets, but we don't get any other funding. So therefore, we have to do things that'll keep the ship afloat.
Yeah.
So what we do is we talk to our members on a regular basis, and so for example we'll be running now, and thankfully we'll be running our digital transformation series in the Dublin City Council offices. Brilliant. Next year. In Woodkey, and so they've very generously offered that facility for us, and we're going to be looking at modern methods of construction as a theme. Now that could be modern design methods, it could be modern, like modular construction, off-site manufacturing, or any aspects around modern methods of construction. As you know, we have a big housing problem in Ireland, so this is a big issue that the council themselves are looking at.
Yeah.
And we also have regional groups. We've got about 10 or 12 regions around the country. So we'll be doing CETA Tech Live 2020 will be in Cork in September. Yeah. CETA Tech Live we did it for the first time in 2018 in Crow Park. So this is where you look at things like other aspects of BIM. So you might look at things like drones.
Okay. Yeah.
You might look at IoT, like what you're doing with your live costs, robotics, 3D printing, BIM, but so other tech.
Yeah.
Automated, autonomous vehicles, that kind of stuff.
So it's a good place to go if you take a little bit of time out of the business.
A little bit of time out. So it'll be one day in Cork, probably late September. Come down on the eve, meet the guys, and then get to see the technology in action.
Yeah.
But what we'll have is we'll have keynote speakers, and then we'll have breakout sessions.
Very good.
And like it could even be a contractor who's trying a new piece of technology or whatever it might be. But it's definitely a way to find out what's going on.
Yeah. So I mean, what you're saying is that we're going through a transition here. There's no doubt about it. We're going through a digital transformation. Things are going to change, right? And the only way the smaller guys, without being completely left behind, is you're going to have to educate yourself, and that's really down to the business owners. And I think what you say about finding a product champion, if it's not you, if you've no interest in technology, you just want to do your thing, you've got to have a product champion in-house, someone that's going to keep on top of what's going on there. And I suppose what you're doing in CETA is an excellent way to sort of keep yourself up to date. Yeah,
and I'd say as well is that the next generation, or even the generation of architects and engineers and construction managers coming out, they have the knowledge. They're gathering the knowledge in the schools and in the colleges, whether it's leaving cert or whether it's going to college. So when these contractors hopefully grow their businesses or even hand it over to the next generation, these guys will already have the skills. So it's important that they move with it. And I'd also encourage the smaller contractors to talk to Leo's, which is the local enterprise office. To talk to Enterprise Ireland, particularly if they're struggling with the tech. Enterprise Ireland have a scheme called BIM Enable, BIM Implement, where they can actually get funding to buy technology, software, and to develop a strategy for their business. That's
brilliant. That's really good. If they want to find out more about CETA or more about yourself, where do they find you?
Well, they can go onto online which is www.cita.ie, and they can give and on that you get the contact details. Suzanne Purcell is the general manager. We've got a great team of guys working in there. But we do rely a lot on, we do other events as well. But also you'll see on the website a list of members that you can, Kieran, first of all, can I just say, it's been great to be here. I believe that there is an opportunity for the Alliance to attract the micro SMEs into CETA
Yeah.
at quite a low cost, if not a negligible cost, hundreds, maybe 125 euros a year.
Yeah.
You're getting access to these events. So if you're living in a remote area of Ireland, or you're living not in Dublin, you can dial in and listen to these talks, listen to a recording of these talks.
Perfect.
You can get guidelines, support. SkillNet's, obviously, the Irish government, they have this project called SkillNets, and CETA SkillNet is the longest established training network in construction in Ireland. Companies can get up to 25% of their funding, of their training costs back, or if they join CETA. So actually, the first training course they do in BIM, it will pay for their membership of the alliance. And also, you might have heard of Springboard. That's actually, I think that's 90% of funding can be paid. So there is help out there for companies, and everyone is very busy, I know that. But if they could try and find a time of the week, or a time where they say, right, this is my time, I'm going to use this half day to learn what's happening.
Yeah.
And go to some of these meetings. And that's why we're pushing to go all the way. We're going down to Cork. And there will be a series of regional meetings around the country in 2020. Now, if I said to people 19650, they wouldn't know what I mean. But ISO 19650 is the new international standard for information management.
Yeah.
So if you think of building information management, okay, so if you're working for a tier 1 contractor, or tier 2 contractor, you may find a reference to 19650. If you as a company can get certification from NSAI for 19650, that will elevate your company into a different level. Yeah. That means the BAMs, the CIS, the John Pauls, the Hegartys will see this company. It's like ISO 9001. Mm-hmm. The quality assurance certificate, right? Yeah. There's lots of ISOs, but if you think so, what we're going to be doing in 2020 is we're going to have a road show for this series, and bringing it to all the regions, not in a technical way, but explaining it like in a simplistic way as possible. But the NSAI are now charged with helping elevating the industry to the next level, and that includes SMEs.
I like that, because I mean, a lot of the stuff that we see, and again, we're talking to these guys on a day-to-day basis, and the feeling that we get is that tier 1 is taking off in a direction, and we don't know whether these guys are ever going to get there. So the fact that you're including these guys in everything that you do and want to bring them in, I think is important, and we'll definitely push out anything that you have and any events that you have. Alan, I really appreciate you giving us the time.
Thank you.
And we'll hope to have you in again as these events are coming out, and we can push them out for you.
Thank you.
Listen, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.